Great to see you all. I'm Brighton West from Almost Retired in Mexico. Probably have something that says that for the screen there. Today we are talking about SSDI, chapter or Title II disability insurance from the United States. Here's the big reveal. Yes, you can live in Mexico and collect SSDI Chapter 2 or Title II disability insurance from the United States, but it gets a lot more complicated than that. And I have an expert with me today, and this is Spencer. He literally wrote the book about how to get through the Social Security disability system, Chapter 2 or Title 2. There we go. There's the book. You can pick that up on Amazon or many other places where you would pick up books. So, but Spencer is here today to answer your questions specifically. I've got a lot of questions myself. And we're also doing some celebrating because, you know, I'm at 5,000 subscribers and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll be doing a number of things as we go along during this this hour that we're spending together. So thank you for being here. If you are here now, go ahead and type into the comments that you're here and where you're coming from, and we'll be very interactive during this time together. But let's start with Spencer. I want Spencer to introduce himself and a little bit of his background as to why he can be the one who writes the book on this stuff and answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brighton. It's great to be here with you. I worked for the Social Security Administration from 2010 to 2021, almost 11 years. And during that time, I wrote almost 2,000 disability decisions for Social Security Administrative Law Judges. I also reviewed a few thousand more decisions on appeal. So in all, close to 5,000 decisions regarding both Title II and Title 16 benefits. And when I left the Social Security Administration, I had all this knowledge, all this insight, all this insider information, and I wanted to help demystify the process for people. Whether you're going to be living in another country or staying in the United States, it's really confusing. There's a lot of rules, there's a lot of procedures, and I wanted to try and help make this a little bit easier for people to understand, to translate some of this government language into just normal person English. So I wrote Social Security Disability Revealed, why it's so hard to access benefits and what you can do about it. And the book does exactly what it says in the subtitle. It tells you all the reasons it can be really difficult to access Social Security benefits, all those barriers that are put in your way to prevent you from doing so, and also explains how you can manage, how you can navigate the system, how you can overcome some of those barriers to give yourself the best possible chance at a successful disability claim.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. And you introduce yourself. I just want to go through the comments here. A couple of people, I noticed that Ernie is here. And you may recognize, Ernie probably recognizes this t-shirt. Thank you so much for the t-shirt, Ernie. And I'll get back to this t-shirt a little bit later on in the video. But yes, we hit 5,000 subscribers just yesterday, I think. So that's pretty exciting. We've got someone, Melan, I'm assuming that may be a Melanie from Connecticut. Someone here, Alan, I think is his name, just flew in. So he's going to get to Mexico tomorrow, catching this later on. And I do want to recognize that most people will watch this later on. That we've got a smaller group here for the live video, but we love having people participate. And then folks will be watching later on. Feel free to put those questions down there. I know Spencer's got a YouTube account, and we'll, you know, I'll try to get him back into the comments every once in a while. Of course, we'll leave his contact information too. Let's see here. So we've got someone who's Alan's originally from Colorado. We've got Washington.
Washington!
There we go. Edmonds, Washington, because you're from Seattle, aren't you originally, Spencer?
Tacoma.
Tacoma. And okay, so quick aside here. So Mike is from Edmonds, Washington, near Seattle. I have a foster dog that's on his way here from SeaTech. The dog is actually started out probably yesterday in South Korea. So we are fostering this dog here. It may arrive here during this show. We might be introducing you to Stin, but so we don't have Pam and Dave are eavesdropping from up in Canada. So if you've got anything to tell the Canadians, we can definitely have them. And we've got 2 travelers in Mexico. We've got a number of folks here. So let's dig into some information though. So I think, this is really, this is a kind of a 2-part conversation. One is about getting the disability benefits. And the second part is more about getting them in Mexico. And I already did the big reveal where I said you can use these benefits in Mexico. But
yeah, that's right.
That's, in terms of disability, you mentioned Title 16 already. And I've read most of your books, so that's why I kind of understand this stuff. It's a really good book. If you are if you are looking at a disability claim, get the book because it is packed with information. So not everyone on disability can move to Mexico. So why don't you talk a little bit first? And you work for the Social Security Administration. So some
That's
people who are getting benefits from Social Security Administration can move to Mexico and some people can't. So why don't you address that a little bit?
Yeah, and also just the word disability, it's so broad. Some people think of on disability as like a private disability claim, right? Like that you may have gotten through your employer. So it's important that we define some terms, that we know what we're talking about. So obviously, like you said, I work for Social Security. I don't know a whole lot about private disability claims, so we're going to limit this discussion to Social Security. But within the Social Security Administration, there's 2 different disability programs, and they go by several names, and I might use them interchangeably just because I'm used to using all of them. So the Title II program, which is Social Security Disability Insurance, it's also called SSDI, that's the earned benefit. Most people are employed, they're an employee, they get a W-2 at the end of the year. If you look at your pay stub, if you're an employee, you'll see a Medicare tax, and then you'll see another tax called either FICA, it should be called OASDI, which stands for Apologies, stands for Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance. It should be Retirement Survivors and Disability Insurance, but it is what it is. And that's the tax that you pay into the Title II system, into the Social Security Trust Fund. Sometimes we hear that thrown around. What is the Social Security Trust Fund? Those are the people that manage all of those taxes that get paid in, the payroll tax. And what you're doing is you're buying insurance. You didn't even know you were buying insurance. You don't have to take a physical. You don't have to fill out an application. It's an insurance policy that you pay into, and actually you have no choice, right? You're required to pay that tax by law. And so you pay in and you buy insurance. And when you reach full retirement age, you can get retirement benefits. If you should pass away and you have minor children, they can collect survivor's benefits. That's a whole different system with its own rules, and I don't really know anything about that system. But the third thing that you're paying into is disability insurance, specifically Title II insurance. You are insured. You have an insured status by earning a certain number of credits. And if you become disabled during a time when you are insured, you can get disability insurance benefits. Oh, they're also called DIB or DIB or disability insurance benefits. The other program is called Title 16 or SSI, which stands for Supplemental Security Income. Oddly, you could also refer to that as DI, which I know is super confusing, but in some of the regulations, SSI is actually called disability insurance, even though it is not Social Security disability insurance. So again, that's why I wrote the book, because it's all really, really confusing. But as you pointed out, with Title II, SSDI, the earned benefit, if you're insured, yes, you can move to a foreign country. There are some foreign countries that are excluded, but we're talking about Mexico. Mexico's not on the exclusion list, so you can move to Mexico and you can collect SSDI just like you could collect retirement benefits. SSI, though, That's funded through regular income taxes, also known as general revenues in Washington. And because of the way that program is funded and it's not an earned benefit, there are more restrictions, a lot more restrictions, and I cover a lot of those in the book. And this is one of them. There is a restriction on moving to and living outside of the United States.
Okay, so I essentially kind of like, layman's terms here is if you worked and earned your benefits, you can take them overseas. But if you didn't, you maybe can't take those overseas. I want to pull someone up here.
No, not maybe. You can't take them overseas.
Okay.
SSDI, you have to be in the United States.
SSI. You just said SSDI. You're even stumbling over the terms.
It's happy hour, man.
Yeah, well,
happy hour.
Let's get into a question. We're going to get to happy hour in a second.
You're right. SSDI, okay. SSI, Title 16, you cannot live in Mexico and still collect that money.
Okay, so we're going to pull up a question here. So Luna is originally from Cuba, now American citizen she says SSD. So that one's not quite clear. And right. So Luna, if you're still there, if you could comment on whether if you know that's SSDI Title 2 or SSI Title 16, let us know. That will probably change Spencer's answers to this question. But Cuba's one of those countries, isn't it, that you cannot go to? Do you know?
So this person seems like they're a Cuban citizen, and I don't know what would have happened with their Cuban citizenship when they became an American citizen. Cuba is on the restricted list because, of course, there are Department of the Treasury regulations about spending US dollars in Cuba. Unless you have specific permission. I know people who have gotten that permission, by the way, and who have legally brought back Cuban cigars from Cuba. But it's rare. You have to get very specific permission from the Department of the Treasury. So unless you have that, you're probably not going to be moving to Cuba.
But she is talking about moving to Mexico,
right?
From the United States. So I guess it really depends on it's which one. So we'll have to hear from Luna.
Exactly. She's a U.S. citizen. She could move to Mexico if it were Social Security disability insurance. But if it's Supplemental Security Income, then she couldn't. And it does say one kind of disability. So we don't really know if it's a yes or no, but of course it's the answer that we just gave. Title 2, yes. Title 16, no.
Okay, so if you know that, just hop back into the comments here. So we do have someone, David is watching from Utah, hoping to move to La Paz next summer. So
I hear you know someone who lives near La Paz. Yeah,
La Paz. So I am up in Oregon right now, and I want to, before we go into kind of all the other stuff, I do want to make sure we talk enough about disability. So let's get to a question I had. Is can you collect SSDI if you've never worked? So, for instance, I just read something about someone who was born with a disability. So if you were born with a disability, is there any hope of moving overseas, or are you kind of stuck in the program where you have to stay?
No, there's definitely hope, because even within SSI and within SSDI, there's several different, think of them as like little mini programs. And so let me give you an example. SSI has an adult program, but there's also a child program. And in fact, children, which is defined as being under 18, can only get SSI. Title II is not available to anyone under the age of 18. But when I worked for Social Security, I wrote lots of decisions for children, for young children, sadly, even for newborns who were born with some kind of, had some kind of birth defect. And yes, a claim can be filed for children for SSI. Now, once that child becomes an adult, reaches the age of 18, they can continue on SSI, although they then have to meet the adult definition of disability, which asks whether you can work. But there are other options. The person could work and earn their own credits and try and get their own Title II insurance. Or there's something called, and this is confusing, but it's called a disabled adult child claim, a DAC claim. And that's a Title II claim that someone can file, and I talk about this in the book, of course, that someone can file on someone else's account, a parent or guardian, and there's a lot of restrictions, but it basically allows someone access to the Title II program and therefore to Medicare, because a significant benefit of Title II benefits is Medicare coverage, and it can let someone onto that program even though they've not worked and earned their own credits. And the Social Security regulations, they do distinguish. I think I put a link to a tool that you can use. I put that in the description, in the thread. And one of the questions is whether or not your Title II claim is based on your own earnings record. And this is what that's referring to. If it was your own earnings record, those Title II benefits are treated differently than if you filed a Title II claim on someone else's earnings record. So to get even more specific, you can move to Mexico if you filed a Title II SSDI claim on your own earnings record. If you filed on someone else's earnings record, a parent or guardian, or a spouse that's passed away, that's called a widow's claim. It's a different kind of Title II claim. Those claims may have more restrictions. And as I say in the book, if you've got a really nuanced, specialized claim like that, you shouldn't be listening to someone on the internet. You need to go hire your own Social Security representative who can listen to your own specific individualized situation and give you advice. It's good to educate yourself on the program before you meet with someone. And the book even talks about how you can find and hire a representative. But when you get really that specific, it is good to talk to someone, a legal representative who can give you specific legal advice about your case.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that's a great thought there, is the idea of listening to people on the internet, because this was a slightly controversial post of bringing up disability. And we definitely had some folks in the comments with some incorrect information about disability and whatnot. Maybe it was old information, but it wasn't right for today. So there's a lot of that going on. And that maybe brings me to another type of disinformation that I want to talk about. And that is YouTubers pretending to be other YouTubers. So Ernie, if you're still here, I decided today what I'm going to do for my next parody video. I'll be parodying Sir Dragon X, who has the Retired Life in Mexico No Bull channel. I will be Sir Penguin X, which I figure was the most opposite of a dragon. And I will be Retired Life in Mexico All Bull. So it's only going to be about the things that are bullshit, about the things that are wrong about Mexico, about the things you hear on the internet that are not right. So watch for that video. I'll have a link at the end if I already have this video available. But
can I
out there.
Can I parody my favorite Mexican YouTuber real quick? I don't know if it's parody, but
yes.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Ready?
Oh, look at that. That is a good looking Mexican
It doesn't
YouTuber.
stay. Yeah, it doesn't fit over the headphones, unfortunately, but that's pretty good, right?
Yes, that's perfect. Perfect.
All right.
So let's go in. I want to ask some more questions, but I know I want to hopefully all of you, this is a happy hour. Hopefully all of you are partaking in whatever drink of your choice. But I know that's water in Spencer's cup, because I know he's going to have a slightly big reveal. So, okay. So Ernie says, awesome idea. He's excited to see that video. So thank you once again. So let's go into, Paula has a question, and that is about Medicare in Mexico. So this is a good, and actually this, there'll be one of these corners up here, maybe next to Spencer, a link to my video with Alex when he talked about getting insurance in Mexico, specifically about insurance to get you back to the United States to access some benefits. But let's talk about Medicare in Mexico.
And that video with Alex, that's really important, because I do remember when he talked about how if you have coverage back in the United States, you may choose a different plan in Mexico than if you don't. And someone who's receiving Title II benefits, a Title II recipient, can get access to Medicare coverage in the United States. There is a waiting period. I believe it's 30 months from the time you're found disabled. So like if you're found disabled on the date of your hearing, you're not going to get Medicare coverage right away. You have to wait for that. But at some point, you will eventually get Medicare coverage. And at that point, you might choose a different, with Alex, of course, you might choose a different policy because you know when you get back to the United States, you'd have coverage. As far as Medicare in Mexico, I don't think so. I am obviously, I'm too young for Medicare. I'm not a disability recipient, so I've never had Medicare. I don't know how Medicare treats like emergency coverage if you're outside of the United States. It's definitely not something someone should rely on if they're going to be outside of the United States. So that's one thing to consider, right? If I have VA benefits or Medicare benefits, and I know that I can get access to certain types of coverage or procedures or whatever in the United States, it's something that I have to think about if I'm going to go live in another country. Having said that, it's Mexico, right? There's direct flights and lots of them. And you can get back, and some of those flights are an hour, and you know, from Tijuana, of course, you could just walk across the border. So it's all about, you know, your individualized situation and moving or living where is most appropriate for you. And that's just one of many considerations.
And that's a great point, because I actually, I don't know if Tim is watching. I'm going to use you as an example, Tim, but Tim is a friend of mine, retired early, moved to Thailand because it was inexpensive. He'd been there before, was loving it there. But then his daughters started having babies and he wanted to be closer to them. And so he moved to Mexico because it was still inexpensive like Thailand, but easy to get back and forth to the United States to see grandchildren. So that's a great reason, is that the family connections, but now also the medical connection. So if you are on Medicare, you can leave the country for as long as you want, but your care has to happen back in the United States. So that's, as Alex would say, it's more of a, I think, like a traveler's plan or something that gets you back to the country versus being able to provide the care where you are.
And the thing is, if you need a lot of care with either the VA or, you know, using your Medicare, maybe that's not the right time to move outside of the United States then. But a lot of people have Medicare coverage, and either they don't need that much care, or maybe it's something they can do like telehealth over the computer. So, you know, it's all an individual specific situation and what kind of care they need and how often, and then where in Mexico, because again, like there are places that you can get back to the US really easy.
So maybe not Oaxaca, but instead Tijuana. So some good things to
consider. Or Cancun, you know, somewhere with easy access back to the United States.
Easy flights back. So let's go down the line here. So we got Luna to come back in and give us a couple more details. So it sounds like she's worked and gained all the credits. So she's probably at SSDI 57. Let me know if I'm wrong. Sounds like she can get all this in Mexico.
When I see I worked and gained all the credits, you and I are on the same page. It sounds like that means it's a Title II insurance coverage. And if someone's an American citizen and it's Title II and it's on their own earnings record, book the flights.
There we go. I love that I have these answers now. Like, you know, a week ago, I was like, Spencer, what happens if? Spencer, what happens if? Spencer, and then I read the book.
And then you read the book. Exactly, right? And the other thing is, she said she's 57. I talk in the book about how Social Security can do continuing disability reviews and can review claims. And a lot of people do lose their benefits because Social Security makes a determination that you're no longer disabled. That gets less likely as you get older. So at age 57, it's probably really unlikely that a continuing disability review would happen. And so when she reaches full retirement age in about 9 years, those Title II disability benefits will just convert to Title II retirement benefits. And it should be a pretty seamless transition for her.
Awesome. Very good. So we got more questions I want to go through.
Right, I'm getting kind of thirsty over here.
Okay. Let's go ahead and celebrate a little happy hour here. So I've already got my very large margarita that I made before this. Spencer has his empty glass. And I want you guys, as you're watching us, I want you to type in, if you're having a drink with us today, let us know. But Spencer, what do you have to drink?
Why don't you tell me what happened yesterday, Brighton, and then I'll tell you what I have to drink.
Yeah, so yesterday I hit 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. So very exciting. Thanks to all of you who are subscribed. And what do you have today, Spencer?
Well, I wanted to get a bottle of champagne, Brighton, to celebrate, but this is Mexico. And of course they have champagne, but you got to celebrate the local culture, right? So I've got myself a bottle here of Vinos Cuatro Soles, Gasificada.
Yep, can see it.
And are we ready to pop it?
I think let's pop
right.
this Mexican wine. I'm a big fan also of drinking Mexican wine while in Mexico. There's the Guadalupe Valley is a great spot for getting wine.
I have no idea if this is
I'm gonna take this off. I'm gonna just show Spencer because this could go flying.
Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Exactly hopefully what we wanted it to do.
Hopefully no one got injured in that opening.
Oh, there's no one else here.
Perfect. Well, cheers. Thank you for being here, Spencer. Thanks all of you. I see that Mary is drinking tea, which is a totally responsible drink. I'm a big tea drinker myself. Let us know what you guys are doing for our happy hour. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, as Mary mentioned, but we will continue, and thank you for this celebration of 5,000 subscribers. Ooh, Laura, I'm just going to throw this out here. Dandy Blend, a small independent restaurant in LA, a dandy latte. Very nice. Cool.
And that's celebrating Mexican culture, by the way, because I don't know how it is in La Paz, but in Mexico City, coffee shops are open till like 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And I see people in there drinking all kinds of fancy things really, really late. So coffee, I know it's only 5:30 on the West Coast, but it's 8:30 on the East Coast. So if you're drinking a late night coffee,
and it looks like she's in LA
right there.
So, okay, what do we got here? I love the coffee shops that stay open late down in Mexico. And I thought they were really catering to expats, but then I started attending there, started going there, and I'm like, oh no, this is a Mexican thing.
And the coffee that would be $10 in LA or $7 in other parts of the US, it'll be like 70 pesos, $3.50, right?
Yep.
And that's why we're encouraging people to move to Mexico, because things cost a lot less.
Yeah, there's so much more. I mean, if you're on disability, you're on a very limited income. You can stretch that much further.
You want to take those Social Security dollars and effectively double them if your costs are cut in half, right?
Right. Think about the number of popsicles. Mexican coconut popsicle. That sounds good. So, okay, let me go back here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Okay, let's talk about residency. Do you list residency, or do you have a home if you have a home in the US? Okay, this is actually good. So someone who's maybe splitting between the two.
Yeah. So I did think about this because this came up in the thread, right? And here's the thing about residency. The numbers might seem okay because the maximum Social Security disability payments over $3,000. I think on average people get around $1,500 to $2,000, and the temporary residency number, since they've switched to that new method of calculating, I think is like $1,400 to $2,000 US dollars, right? So it's possible that your disability benefit could qualify you based on the numbers for temporary residency. However, and I am not a Mexico immigration expert, right? However, I do notice that every time I personally look this up, it says employment or pension. And I think it really comes down not so much to the math and the numbers, but to the word pension. Social Security retirement is really more like a traditional pension where it's intended to be for the rest of your life, right? It's intended to be in perpetuity. That's not the case with Social Security disability benefits, because Social Security can and does all the time conduct continuing disability reviews, find that people are no longer disabled, and remove them from benefits. So this is really more of a question for a Mexico immigration expert.
And actually, let me jump in here because
Right.
I did check with Mariana from Mexico Relocation Guide, which Ernie will know. Ernie does a lot of stuff with Mariana. I've got videos with Mariana. Super helpful person, and she's got a lot of experience here. And she said she has had clients of hers apply for Mexican residency using disability insurance income. So
has it worked?
And it's worked. Yes.
See, so, I would have guessed the opposite. So
it's hard. It's probably consulate by consulate. Another YouTuber, Q RuPaul, two expats in Mexico, does talk a lot about recently about consulate shopping. And someone actually talked about this prior to this video. Was they were looking for a consulate who had a lower income requirement, so that their disability payments would match that. Because if you go somewhere like, maybe I'm just going to guess, like New York City, the requirement is more strict than somewhere like, El Paso, Texas or something. So they all have slightly different requirements and probably slightly different ways of the way that they look at things. But Mariana said that she did succeed, had clients succeed with using their disability income to meet that, $1,500, $2,000 income required by the Mexican government.
But it's Mexico, so just because it happened one time doesn't mean it's going to happen the next time.
Yes,
it could.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are there's a lot of people living on disability in Mexico. They could be, I actually talked to one person who's in Cabo who is on disability, and I asked him, how did you get through the residency requirement? He said, well, I bought an expensive house. So there are, there's family connections that can get you through your residency. There's an income requirement. There's an investment requirement. There's just how much money you have in the bank. So you could,
and these are different requirements. These are all different ways of getting
different options. So
if
you're on disability, however, you just inherited, $100,000, you can come into Mexico based on that inheritance, not based on your SSDI. So there's different ways to do it, but
because there's monthly numbers or just a flat amount if you just have a set amount in your bank account. So there's all kinds of different options. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So I think though, Paula was asking about, do you list your residence in the U.S. if you have a home in the U.S.? So this is not necessarily about the Mexican residency, but about the U.S. side, I think. Does it matter where you list your residency if you're on SSDI? I mean, this is not something you don't have to say you're in the U.S. You don't have to try to hide it. But
the other thing is, someone like you is part-time in both places. So like, where's your residency, right?
Yeah.
I think, if it was 6 months and 6 months, you're being honest if you put down either one. Yeah. But if you're in Mexico 11 and a half months of the year and you go back for a couple of weeks, it's never a good idea to lie to the United States government. A lot of those forms say you're filling this out under penalty of perjury. Don't lie, especially because if it's SSDI, you don't need to. You can tell them you're living in Mexico. If it's SSI, again, don't lie. If you're in Mexico, you just won't be eligible. So list your U.S. address, but because you're staying there. But lying it to the government, don't do that. You'll be caught.
Right. Especially, I mean, everything's so electronic these days. So I'm going down through some questions here. So Judith says she loves the show and she has Social Security and a pension, and she's in Querétaro, which is a place that I really want to visit. So SSDI Medicare is something that Paula, and I'm not sure what that question is. Maybe that means something to you.
Well, we covered earlier whether or not you can get what to do with your Medicare, right? If you're an SSDI recipient and you have Medicare coverage,
Come back
we
to
said, yeah, you just kind of have to decide how much care you actually need and decide what's the best place for your individualized situation about US or Mexico. And then if Mexico, where in Mexico?
Okay, I think this one's going to stump Spencer, but we're gonna play the stump Spencer game.
It wouldn't be the first time.
So, what about getting medical records in Spanish for a recertification for SSDI? Would they accept from a Mexican doctor? Because, like, for instance, prescriptions can't cross borders.
Yeah.
So you need a Mexican prescription, you need a U.S. prescription, depending on which side of the border you're on.
I do sort of have an answer for this one, because when I was at the Appeals Council, and this was a long time ago, but when I was at the Appeals Council, we had cases from all over the country, including Puerto Rico, where most medical records were in Spanish. And we actually had a specific group of employees that were able to read Spanish, and they handled those cases because obviously it's best to get the medical records from the primary source. Translations, they're really interpretations, right? And when you're going from one language to another, sometimes the meaning or the intent of something might get lost. So when you're talking about, for example, a medical opinion from a doctor, you don't want to lose the nuance of what that doctor is trying to say. So you're right in the sense that I don't know exactly what you would do today, but I do know that in Puerto Rico, which, by the way, quick sidebar, only has Title II. You cannot get SSI in Puerto Rico because they don't pay income taxes. You can only get now I hope I didn't misspeak. You can only get Title II, SSDI, because in Puerto Rico, they do pay the Social Security tax, but not income taxes. And that's why you can only get the program that you're paying into. So there are Title II claims, and there is I think there's actually 2 Puerto Rico hearing offices. And so there are people who do have medical records in Spanish. I'm going to revert to my standard answer, which is have a representative, ideally a bilingual representative, because maybe your records are in Spanish, but you're not in Puerto Rico, right? You're in Chicago or Seattle, and you're probably going to get a judge that doesn't speak Spanish. And I'm sure that Social Security has a procedure. I just don't know exactly what that procedure is. But you can hire a representative anywhere in the United States. This is a federal program. So if you live in Des Moines, Iowa, and you think, I'm not going to find a bilingual Social Security representative near me, you can hire one in Houston or Los Angeles or Miami and meet with them online, just like we're doing now, and they can represent you and do a phone hearing, and it's not a problem. So I think in this situation, best to have a bilingual representative who knows and understands the process that Social Security uses when they get records in a foreign language.
So that's actually one thing I want to talk about is from the book, I could definitely see the importance of that representative, someone who knows this system inside and out, who can help you go through it. And one of the things you talked about in the book was the bigger thing than these Social Security disability payments, that $1,500 a month, is the Medicare that comes along with it, because that can be so much more valuable.
Well, it just depends on your financial situation, right? But for some people who they have savings that they can live on, or they've been putting money into their IRAs. For a lot of people, it's not about the monthly paycheck. It really is about that Medicare coverage.
Yep.
And if that's you, because you really need Medicare, because you have a lot of medical care, that might be someone who's probably not a candidate for moving to a foreign country, right? Whereas the person who says, I don't need that much medical care, I just want my monthly payments to satisfy my residency requirement, because we now know you can do that.
Yep.
And get my green card so I can move to Mexico. So everyone's different. Some people want the monthly payments more. Some people need the Medicare more. Some people really need both. And I have friends and family members who are in a variety of different situations. Having said that, I do just want to say real quick, those monthly payments, it's not enough when you live in the United States. It doesn't matter where you live in the US. It's really not very much. Even if your income was really high and you were paying a lot of the Social Security tax, what are we talking? $2,000 a month? Like, you're not living a life of luxury on that. That's like the basic necessities in the United States, which is why it's so important to do something like this, to talk about this idea of, hey, maybe I have another option. Maybe I can go live in Mexico and it won't feel like I've got $2,000 a month. That'll feel more like $4,000 a month because the prices are cheaper.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think it's really important to talk about this because obviously, yeah, there might be people who really need that Medicare coverage, but there's a lot of people who just want those monthly payments and who want to stretch them as far as possible.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up Kate here, who's a Canadian, but just wondering about the income thresholds for temp residency. Are the individuals in this segment? So the income requirements are a Mexican thing. And so it's the Mexican government saying you need to have this much money. If you don't have that much money, we don't trust that you're not going to end up on our welfare system that you're, so just to kind of quickly cover that. So congratulations on the 5K subscribers. Thank you. So two travelers in Mexico are enjoying a live stream and dinner. Very good. Hopefully that's a good Mexican dinner going on there.
Brighton, did we have a question about bank accounts?
Oh yeah, there was a question about bank accounts. It was right up there at the top, and I told you we would cover it. So
yeah,
Winston Voorhees Townsend, I'm having trouble seeing now. Third, asks about, is it possible to have Social Security deposited into Mexican banks?
The short answer is yes. And I did a little bit of research here before we started on the Social Security website. It shows that in July of this year, just for Mexico, over 63,000 payments were sent through Mexican banks. So obviously a lot of people choose to go this route, but it's not required. I mean, think about it. Maybe you want to move back to the United States. Maybe you might decide to live in a different country, and then you're going to have to update everything with Social Security again. Another option is to just give Social Security direct deposit information for a U.S. bank or credit union, and then you can handle moving the money on your own. Mm-hmm. Then you can think about the exchange rate from the dollar to the peso. A lot of Mexican bank accounts have limits for deposits and withdrawals. So it might just be better so you can certainly do it. You can have the money sent from Social Security directly in your Mexican bank account if you meet all the requirements. And a lot of people do. But you could also think about, maybe it'd be better for me to have that money go in dollars, and then I can control when I convert that money to pesos, so that I'm not just getting whatever random rate that there happens to be today. I can get the exchange rate that I want and that I need for my Mexican peso budget.
Yes. So Spencer, I want you to point up with your left hand. Okay, right hand. Okay, there we go. Over there. So there's
you did say left hand.
There we go. Hand, yeah. About Q Paul talking about when to deposit your money into a Mexican account. So there'll be a little video up there where Spencer's checking, because it is important.
Look, I'm balancing a glass on my finger.
It's perfect. Yes. So the dollar to peso has been as high as 20.8. And now is just about 20.1, has been down below 20 a lot. So yeah, if you time it, you could end up with 5 or 10% more money. So I'm definitely a fan of having a US account and making a conscious decision of when you move that money over into pesos.
Yeah, there are a lot of good reasons to have a Mexico bank account, which you can only get if you are a temporary or permanent resident, because I believe you need a CURP to do it. But if you are a resident, once you have your green card and your CURP, you can get a Mexico bank account. And I highly recommend it. And there's a lot of good reasons. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure Social Security direct deposit is one of those reasons.
Right.
There are a lot of websites that will only take a Mexico credit or debit card, for example. But you can, of course, you can just move your money from your American account or Canadian account or wherever to your Mexican account and then use your Mexican debit card. So yeah, so the answer is yes, you can. It's probably a personal preference thing. You just have to think about all the requirements, everything you would have to show Social Security in order to get those payments put into a Mexican bank account, and then think about whether or not that's really the best thing for your specific situation.
Right, exactly. So I do want to recognize Gaji said earlier that she was drinking a margarita. That was even before we started this live stream. Gaji mentioned the margaritas near my house, so in La Paz. And I do want to mention also, Judith points out here that medical care is less expensive in Mexico. So this is going to be a balancing act. If you are on Medicare, whether you just want to pay out of pocket, like I have a video about I got an infection in my toe because I always walk around barefoot. And it cost me $17 to go to a doctor, get pain pills, and 2 different antibiotics.
You overpaid. You overpaid.
I know, exactly.
Yeah. There's a pharmacy in like 10 minutes for me where it's, I think, 100 pesos. So
yeah. It's inexpensive in Mexico. So I've gotten up to like $250. My wife's insurance that she gets through her work covers Mexico. And that's not really common for US insurance companies to cover Mexico, but it is something where you have to spend the pesos and then get reimbursed. And so for up to a couple $100, it's not worth it. But for a couple $100, you can get probably a few $1,000s worth of medical care in US, like if you were in the US.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people sometimes miss when they're thinking about their Medicare coverage. So let's say you get through that whole complicated process of getting Social Security disability benefits, right? And you get Title II SSDI benefits, and finally you get your Medicare coverage, and then maybe you buy one of those supplemental plans, and you can go see a doctor, and you only pay a $30 copay, and that's great. I don't actually know what the copays are. I'm just making that up. But like, let's say that's your situation, and maybe that's way better than you ever had on any of your other insurance policies. But in my example, $30 is 600 pesos, and you can go to a pharmacy and see one of those doctors for like 80 to 100 pesos. So just because you have Medicare coverage, obviously if like you need an MRI or if you've got cancer.
Even an MRI, though, it could be cheaper in Mexico than your copay up in the US.
That's true. There are places you can get x-rays for $40, an MRI for like a few $100s. So Medicare coverage is great if you are disabled and unable to work and you're on SSDI. The Medicare coverage is fantastic based on US prices.
Yep.
Right? It's an amazing thing to have in the paradigm of the US health insurance and medical community. But you might find that you might be able to come to Mexico and just pay out of pocket and have it be the same or less. And if that's not you, Mexico might not be the best choice. We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things that would be great to investigate. So you can see like, oh, I've got my Medicare, but Medicare is really only a benefit if it's cheaper. If you could get your coverage in Mexico and it costs less than it would with Medicare, it's great to have the Medicare, but maybe you could also move to Mexico.
Yeah, I think, and this is something we talked about with Alex too, is that medical care is so inexpensive. And had another video about someone who was receiving cancer treatment in Mexico, so much less expensive. He was paying cash because he didn't have US insurance. Matthew is the person in that video. It was so much less expensive that like it wouldn't pay to buy the plane ticket to go back to the US to get that care because even if you were in the US, say you're living in New Jersey or something like that, you'd be paying more for your copay than you would for the entire thing with no insurance down in Mexico.
I have a family member in this exact same situation where the trip back to the United States, plus the doctor, plus the medication and everything, actually it's just cheaper to see a doctor and get the medicine here in Mexico. So it's so common, and it's one of those things where, you know, the two of us aren't going to tell you what to do with your specific situation. Only you know what kind of care you need and what kind of medication you need. So everyone needs to make an individualized determination. But real quick, one thing I just want to make sure people understand, because we're talking about like when you get your SSDI and you can move to Mexico, and when you get your SSDI, but it's really an if you get your SSDI. And that's what the book is about, right?
Yes.
It's about how complicated it is, how the deck really is stacked against claimants, and how Social Security really does everything that they can to make it really easy for you to pay that tax. It just comes automatically out of your paycheck, but then to make it really difficult to get those benefits. You can't just think like, oh, this is fantastic, I'll just apply for SSDI and get disability and move to Mexico. It is not simple. It is a really complicated process, right? Just because you've worked and earned those credits, that does not mean you're going to be approved. You have to have a lot of medical evidence. You have to have the right medical evidence for your particular situation to prove the specific things that you need to prove based on your medical conditions, your age, and your work history. And you have to know all of that, right? You have to know what they're going to expect from you, how the process is going to work, who's on your side and not on your side, when things are going to happen that are kind of disadvantageous for you. So it's really important to know all that. So we talked about earlier how I do recommend everyone have a representative. And yes, I don't think you should be filling your own cavities. I don't think you should be, you know, setting your own broken bone. I don't think you should fix your own car engine. And as a lawyer, I don't think you should handle your own legal proceedings. You should have a representative. But the Social Security representatives, they're really busy people. It's a volume business, and they have a lot of clients, and they cannot take the time to explain everything to you that is in this book. So the best thing is for you to educate as you know, Brighton, because you've read it, educate yourself on the process so you know the difference between Title II and Title 16, the 5-step sequential evaluation, and why there are not 5 steps. What's going to happen at a hearing? This doctor that they're sending me to, who is that person and why are they sending me? What's going to happen at my hearing? Oh, if I lose, how can I appeal? You need to know all those things so that when you hire a representative, you can have an intelligent, thorough, thoughtful discussion with your representative, and the two of you together, you could work together to present your case in the best light possible to give yourself the best chance at being approved for SSDI so that you can then move to Mexico.
I love it. So this is actually a good time to have a little like how to get the book. So I've been reading it on my Kindle, which is downstairs right now. But yeah, this is give us a little book spiel.
Sure. Yeah, we're on Amazon, Kindle and paperback. You can also get it through Barnes & Noble or any other place you can get paperbacks. You can also get it on Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Scribd in ebook. And you're also able to go tell your local library you want them to carry the book in either the ebook or paperback formats, and they can go get it. And then you can read it, and then your neighbors can read it, and everyone else in your community can read it, and you all can move to Mexico together.
Awesome. Yes.
Or maybe not. Maybe you don't like your neighbors. I don't know.
I had actually some of my neighbors show up at a happy hour here in Portland that I was having a happy hour, and I thought they were just happened to be there at the restaurant, but then they joined the group, and I was like, oh, they're here for the happy hour because they want to move to Mexico too, because yeah, it's definitely a good thing. So
it's a big country. There's plenty of room.
Yeah, that is true. Like I was working on my video for my retired life in Mexico all bowl about kind of some of the things that people think about Mexico. And one of them is this common thought is that it's all it's all desert. So you can tell us a little bit about the rain in Mexico City, maybe. And I live in La Paz, which is the desert, and there's something like 5 inches per year, and most of that comes in when there's a hurricane nearby. But Mexico City,
you're in Baja, sir. I'm in Mexico City. Q RuPaul is in Quintana Roo. Just like the United States, it's a big country, and there's a lot of different climates, and there's a lot of different places and things that appeal. Some people want to be near the beach. For us, the cooler, more temperate climate, and being in a big city with public transit, that was important to us because we don't want to own a car. And other people might want to be in a community where you can't get mail because you don't have an actual address, or at least it's really difficult to get mail, as you talked about in your most recent video.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very large place, and there's something for everyone. But the great thing is it's all in pesos, and the prices are Mexican prices all around Mexico.
Yes. And I love your mention of the mail. It's a great foreshadowing of a future video. I'm going to be sending some mail down to Spencer in Mexico City to see like how mail works between the two countries.
Or doesn't.
Yeah, because you sent something recently. Did you send it to California or from California?
I mailed it and sent it to California. It was just a regular envelope with a regular stamp, and it took 34 days. Despite the fact that between here and Northern California, I think there's like between the airlines, like 6 direct flights every single day.
Yeah.
And it took 34 days. So we'll just have to see what happens, particularly when you get in a situation where your address is like describing the buildings on your street.
Yeah, and that is what my address is. There'll be a future video about that. Watch for that. So we got a couple of questions here that I want to hit right before we hit the end of the hour.
Speed round.
Medicare mandatory at 65. What about if we live in Mexico? This is something that I'm not familiar with because I'm not 65, but maybe you know a little bit about.
Yeah, so I don't think Medicare is mandatory, but I do, again, because I'm just not on Medicare or Social Security, but I do know that if you have Social Security and Medicare, the Medicare premiums are taken automatically out of your Social Security, at least for Part A, like for the emergency coverage, because they don't want you to have to pay separately. So they just withdraw it automatically out of your Social Security, and then they send you whatever's left. So, but I don't think there's like a requirement that you be signed up for Medicare. But the thing is, you've paid the Medicare tax, and I could be wrong, maybe there is, but you paid the Medicare tax your entire life, and it's a pretty significant benefit, and it's really cheap. So I would just say, like, maybe just keep it, even if it's not required, because you never know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you do get cancer or something like that, you might want to move back to the United States and get that. The value of the medical coverage might be worth it.
Right. But just full disclosure, I work for Social Security. I'm not a Medicare expert. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. So I'm guessing, it's an educated guess. But again, like, it's Medicare coverage, and there are a lot of people in the United States who wish they had it. So when you get the opportunity to have it, maybe you don't give it up quite so easily.
And here's a question that's probably also a little bit too detailed for you as a disability expert.
Yeah.
But I wanted to throw it up there anyway, in case other people are thinking about going back to Medicare, maybe a little bit out of here. I do want to kind of wrap up here as we end with Tom. Tom sounds like he was working for the airlines, and that is a benefit, definitely. If you do work for the airlines and you've got those benefits of being able to fly wherever you want, wow, the ability to just go back to the United States whenever you want for free, especially if you're in a place like Mexico City.
But this is a great topic just to end on. If you're still working, that presents a problem for disability and for Social Security disability insurance, because as a claimant, you can only earn a certain amount. And I talk about this in the book. There's a limit to how much you can earn and still file a claim for disability. And if you're found disabled, there is a even smaller amount that you can earn and keep your disability benefits. So that's a great segue into that, which is yes, you can work as a claimant, and you can even work as a benefits recipient, but you have to be very careful with those amounts. And I'm not saying you can't go over those amounts, but you have to know exactly what will happen if and when you do go over those amounts. And I talk about that in the book.
Yes. So some very specific rules, also a good reason to have someone on your side who knows all these rules, who can tell you like, whoa, don't do that, or you're going to lose and, out on your monthly benefit or your Medicare. So, and Tom mentions also about sign up, get your benefits. You've earned them, go for it. So, Spencer, I think we've talked about where they can find the book. There will be down below a link to the book, and also probably a link to find Spencer.
Any questions you have, bishinspublishing.com, BISHINS publishing.com, description of the book, table of contents, all our social media, it's all there, bishinspublishing.com.
There we go. And Bishins is Spencer's last name. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Spencer. And above Spencer's head right now, you're going to see two videos. One is, or maybe two videos if you're watching this enough in the future. One is the video with Ernie, where I am retired life in Mexico, all bull. And the other one is about Kim in La Paz. Kim is a doctor who is working remotely. So even if you aren't on disability, you could be a remote worker, even if you're a doctor. She's a pediatrician working remotely. It's possible to move to Mexico no matter what your profession is. So